I'm beautiful Jellyfish, it's Tracy, and today I'm going to be talking about crafting your EDH mana base. I feel like this is a really important topic, and it's definitely like a really difficult thing, I would say, to like kind of get right. And I think it can just be like really intimidating to be like, what lands am I like supposed to run in this? And common misconceptions, which we're going to talk about with mana bases. So let's get into it. These are like 5 things that I jotted down that I think will be really helpful information that I wanted to pass on to y'all. So the first thing is the number of lands to run. I think anywhere from 35 to 38 is great. 35 is like my sweet spot. It's like in draft, like 17 lands is like my perfect number, or like in limited. 35 just always seems really perfect to me. I don't think I'd ever go any less than that. And just really depending on the deck, I can run more. Like if you're running a deck that needs to ramp a lot, I would say totally up that and run more, because you want to get lands constantly filtered throughout your deck. But 35 is just my sweet spot, and I really just think the place that you want to be. The second thing that I see people who get really lost into running all these like fancy lands is you actually just do want to run basic lands. A lot of times you're going to have instances where someone is going to have you search for a basic land, or you may have cards too that say search for basic land, and I think sometimes since there's so many mana acceleration cards, people forget like, wow, I should actually run basics, and like I don't think people run like enough basics, and then they're like, oh, failed to find, and like that just really sucks, and that is not a place that you want to be. So I would just always be under the assumption that you may have cards, you may not like have cards that get you basic lands, but your opponents may, and you want to get them out of your deck so that you can clear your way for your other really powerful cards. Okay, the third thing, this is the really big misconception I would say with EDH mana bases, that they have to be expensive. Here's the deal, is you, depending on your play group, is the disclaimer I would say, you may not necessarily need like a fetch land, for example. You could get away with running a card like Terramorphic Expanse in place of a fetch land. And obviously, looking at these, fetches are just going to be better, but those can be more expensive, and if you are just really looking to be on like a budget for EDH, I think something like Terramorphic Expanse is a totally fine magic card to get. So I would just say, like, don't get lost in the people who think you need to spend millions of dollars on your mana base. Like, you don't. However, I just will say pay attention to your EDH group, because if you're playing against a really fast group, the fact that Terramorphic Expanse says that your lands come into the play tapped, that slows you down a turn, and that can actually just end up hurting you. So I would just really be aware of your surroundings and just, you know, see the things that you can do that are like much cheaper than, you know, the really expensive cards. Okay, number 4 is a really important thing that I've noticed that I didn't really do this at the start, and it was something I always did really incorrectly, is to try to like divide your basics like as evenly as possible. And what I mean by that is, say you're doing like a 2-color deck and you do have more like blue symbols, for example, and you're like, cool, well I want to run like more blue basics, and I would agree maybe you could up that number by like 2 or so, but you actually probably want to cut close to even as possible, because say you're running like a blue-black deck, you may like you run into instances where you're like, wow, I really need like black mana, but like you have so many more blue basics, and like you're tutoring for a base, like you're in an instance where you just really need that color but you don't have it. I ran into this actually when I had a blue-black deck in EDH, and I ran into that issue. I was like, oh my god, like I can't cast my commander because like I don't have an even split of my mana. So I would say, unless you're doing a very, very minimal splash for like a card, which you're probably not doing, you're probably running like a decent amount of cards that I would consider it potentially more than a splash, that you want to try to cut basics. So like say you have a bunch of specialty lands, and say you have like 20 basics, I would try to cut that close to like 10 and 10 as possible. Now there's more things you could do. If you want to do like 11-9 or something like that, I would say that's totally fine, but I would just be really aware of that, because you can run into issues where you're constantly drawing the wrong color and it sucks. Okay, and the last thing is, if you're like, Tracy, what cards should I run? EDH mana based crafter. This site is amazing. I think it's actually already listed in the down bar below, but actually I lied, it's probably not, but I'll list it in the down bar below for this video. It is a really helpful website if you're just looking to like find random cards for your EDH mana base. Like, there's not room to talk about them all here, though I have to say I have done videos. It's called Let's Not Be Basic with Lands, and I actually have a series where I talk about a ton of EDH lands that are basics. They're like specialty lands, but a lot of them are very affordable options, which goes back to my other point that you don't have to buy really expensive cards. You can buy ways to, like, that's one of the things too that I found that I want to get is I want way more ways of like filtering, because I want to get my colors, and I also want to thin my deck out. So I want to be able, so I'm drawing, like, I'm just not drawing lands every turn. Like, of course, yes, is that going to happen? Yeah, sure, absolutely, but like it's going to be less if I have cards that I can tutor. I can like get them out of my deck. So EDH Mana Base Crafter is a great website. I really recommend it. And it's just, it makes things so easy. You just type in your commander and then it gives you literally every land you can run in that color combination. So it's really helpful. And I feel like too sometimes like for monocolor decks, because I think a lot of times like the lands are like 2 or 3 color decks, that it can get like a really, you're like, what on earth am I supposed to run in a monocolor deck? But like this website gives you options for like things that you can run that there's probably going to be cards that you've just never even heard of, which is really cool. I've discovered a lot of really awesome stuff through that website. So yeah, that is it, guys. That is it for like 5 tips on crafting your EDH mana base. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it gave you guys some insight in like crafting a little bit more of your mana base, and I will see you guys in my next video.